Ask Me Anything by Radical. President Trump has threatened national monuments, resumed Arctic drilling, and approved the Dakota Access Pipeline. I'm an environmental lawyer taking him to court. Ask me anything. So you guys are suing Trump for these acts against the environment, of which he's used executive orders to do so. Since you guys are merely suing, does this actually stop the executive order from being executed? Or is there only a fine? What are Trump's repercussions for you guys winning a lawsuit? Our goal in filing the lawsuits is to get court orders reversing the illegal actions. For example, in our challenge to Trump's order that purports to overturn Obama's withdrawal of most of the Arctic and parts of the Atlantic Oceans from availability for offshore oil drilling, our goal is to get a court order declaring Trump's action illegal and invalid, which would have the effect of confirming the protection of these ocean waters against oil drilling. You/Drew C. Earth Justice, I would like to know what your organization's policy on nuclear power is. Might I add that if it could be in layman terms, that would be great. Aren't there already pipes in the area where the Dakota pipeline is being proposed? If so, why is this pipeline so different bad? The Dakota Access Pipeline would cross the Missouri River a half-mile upstream of the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. An oil spill would be catastrophic to the tribe and its members. The original pipeline path was supposed to cross the river just upstream of Bismarck, North Dakota, but it was moved to just upstream of the reservation. That is an injustice, especially coming in the wake of centuries of injustice perpetrated against Native Americans. Finally, if we already have as many pipelines as you suggest, we certainly don't need another one that will have to be paid for by many years of increased fossil fuel production. Instead, we need to move toward cleaner and smarter energy, for economic as well as environmental reasons. Are you still litigating over Dakota Access? If you are, is that a prudent use of charitable assets given that the odds of prevailing are between slim and none? We are still litigating over the Dakota Access Pipeline. We may or may not win the case, but we don't give up until the case is over. And the case isn't over, whether or not we succeed in stopping the pipeline. The case has been incredibly valuable. It's galvanized unity and empowerment among Native American groups. Things will never be the same in the fight for Native American rights, thanks to the courage and commitment of the Standing Rock Sioux. It has been an honor for Earth Justice to represent them. Can you explain how the question of standing affects your litigation? Specifically with something like drilling in the Arctic or mining on public lands. How does the question of standing get hashed out in your cases? Let's take drilling in the Arctic as an example of how standing works in environmental lawsuits. In order to file a lawsuit, you have to have a personal stake in the matter. In the Arctic drilling cases, our clients are organizations whose members use the Arctic Ocean for fishing or whale watching or a host of other activities that would be harmed if there was a giant oil spill in the Arctic Ocean. One of the worst places in the world to have an oil spill. That potential harm to our clients' interests is what gives them legal standing to sue. And that legal doctrine allows our clients to hold the federal government accountable for following the law by taking the government to court. It's an incredibly important and valuable system of checks and balances that forces the government to be accountable to ordinary citizens. Why did the DAPL only become an issue after the tribes asked for double what the company building it was offering them to build it on their property and the company found another route? Why weren't they against it from the beginning? How did they decide that if they could get double what the company offered them everything was a-okay? But if not, it must be some huge problem steeped in racism and not caring about the environment. How can someone prevent construction on private property they do not own and have no legal rights to? How can you advocate against pipeline projects when shipping oil and gas via train is worse for the environment, both in how much trains pollute versus pipelines, and how dangerous trains are versus pipelines? Thank you for asking the questions I wanted to, but in a much smarter way. Of course. There's no way he will touch this question with a 10-foot pole. Has your firm considered going after Mexico under NAFTA for the illegal fishing that is conducted in US waters? I am an angler and I'm only legally allowed to land a certain amount of fish when I go out. I have read and have heard of Mexicans illegally fishing in our waters landing up to 100 times the legal amount. They get detained by the Coast Guard. Their boat and catch gets confiscated under NOAA authority, and then the Mexican nationals get turned over to CBP for repatriation. Is there any recourse against the Mexican gov who allows it? I suspect your inbox is probably flooded. But if you find it possible to answer my question is this. Why is it a bad thing to resume drilling in the Arctic if the oil is going to be claimed anyways? I personally would rather see my own country profit from it than Norway, Denmark, the UK, Russia, and other foreign nations. While I 100% agree with you on the other topics, and I even acknowledge the dangers and detriments to the environment that Arctic drilling will have, it's not like other nations are simply going to let it sit untapped. Though perhaps I am misunderstanding something. Which is in fact why I'm asking the question. I'm no fan of Trump, but I don't think he's wrong in this particular decision. At least given my current level of understanding on the issue. There's a general, low-level understanding that nobody will actually be allowed to drill the Arctic in a big way. It's yet to be written in agreement. But shitty moves like the US taking a slice means everyone else will want to go for it. The best result, and maybe only, if we want a livable Earth, is to steadfastly push for no more drilling of any kind for oil in the Arctic. Not try win the rat race to oblivion. Is there a lot of precedent for independent law firms like yours challenging the powers that be and winning? What would be the tipping point in moving toward victory? A higher court taking on your case? There must be thousands of lawsuits against Trump that will never see the light of day. We win a lot more cases than we lose. Which is amazing when you consider the political and economic power of our adversaries in court, the federal government, the oil industry, the coal industry, many other industries, many state governments. We're David against Goliath. Unfortunately, David wins a lot. As a result, there are wild places and wild species that wouldn't exist at all or in their current condition, except for earth justice lawsuits. And there are children who are breathing cleaner air and drinking cleaner water than they would otherwise. We believe that the law can make the world a better place. And we work every day to make that happen. Do you think anything would happen with this lawsuit? Or will it just get added to his already massive pile of lawsuits? The American system of laws and courts is a wonderful thing. Everyone has to follow the law. I have to follow the law. You have to follow the law. And President Trump has to follow the law. When someone doesn't, ordinary citizens can go into court and seek to hold them accountable. That's what we're doing at Earth Justice to fight back against the Trump administration's illegal actions. And we will get decisions from the courts on all these cases. The wheels of justice sometimes turn a little slowly, but they do turn. One of the great things about filing public interest environmental lawsuits is that you generally get a ruling, up or down. Who pays you? Not OP. But according to their website, the money comes from individual donors and foundations. Where did you do your environmental law degree? Also, are you well versed in bird law? Could you explain a bit more about how the Trump administration is trying to undo various public protections? Are they declining to enforce federal regulations? Or trying to change the regulations? So far they have mostly been focused on trying to illegally reverse pro-environment actions taken by President Obama. Examples of this include their attempted reversing of the federal coal leasing moratorium adopted by President Obama in early 2016. And their attempted to reverse President Obama's withdrawal of most of the Arctic Ocean and important parts of the Atlantic Ocean from availability for offshore oil leasing. We've filed lawsuits against both those Trump administration actions, which violate the National Environmental Policy Act and the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act respectively. Hello. Thanks for answering these important questions. Here's mine. As current environmental studies student in Utah, considering the recent move to review national monuments, what are the chances places like Bears Ears are threatened? Can their monument status be revoked? Thank you. Has Trump done any damage to the protections for the Great Lakes? Specifically Lake Superior? With Isle Royale and large portions of the upper Michigan being home to many species. It would be tragic if some kind of crazy happened there. Not to mention that Superior is responsible for 1/4 of the world's fresh water. I heard once that one of the old copper mines had been slated to be filled with sulfuric acid for leaching purposes. Don't know if that went through, but I shudder to think about that getting into some of the deeper artesian water sources. Anyway, thanks for going to bat for all of us. Trump's EPA director is at odds with most environmentalist causes. He bases his official actions on economic rationale. Can't this be construed as dereliction of duty? Do you have any recommendations on what an everyday dude can do to stop slow the DOI from reverting recently designated national monuments? I see the public comment period starts on the 12th. So I will definitely be doing that. Any other ideas? I'm so glad you'll be filing a comment. That's a great place to start. Telling your senators and member of Congress that you want them to protect all national monuments is another important step. Writing to Secretary Suing, which you can do on Earth Justice's website, is another great action you can take. If a judge rules in your favor, there's still the appeals process. What sort of other tactics will likely be used in that case by the administration? What kind of extended timeline are you prepared to navigate? What is your stance on nuclear power? Do you feel like using nuclear power would help the environment, or is the catastrophic risk, regardless of the probability, not worth the net gain in clean energy? Even if it means less dependence on fossil fuels? Would lowering regulations against nuclear power, reducing operating costs for affordability and cost efficiency, lessen the environmental impact of fossil fuels due to less dependency, since nuclear energy is essentially better than fossil fuels as a source of energy? What is your / organization's position on nuclear power? How has your work changed from working for NRDC to working for Earth Justice? And do you have any advice for a scientist who wants to work for these organizations? I've been fortunate to work for both Earth Justice and NRDC, two of the most effective environmental groups in the world. I'm proud that NRDC is one of Earth Justice's clients. My advice to any scientist who wants to work with either organization is to go for it, because having access to great scientific capacity is critical to both organizations. In advocacy work, it's critical that scientists have both technical and advocacy skills, including the ability to translate technical concepts into language that is understandable and compelling to laypeople, such as judges. Didn't the pipeline stuff start under Obama? Did you fight it then? Were you vocal then? Why argue against the Dakota access pipeline when the oil is going to get there regardless? It's a lot safer by pipeline than by truck or train, I would assume. What is illegal about what he's doing? When you take someone as high profile as the president to court, do they actually show up? When we sue any government official, including the president, they don't have to come to court personally. They are represented by the United States Department of Justice, which goes to court on their behalf. But the key thing is not whether they have to go to court personally, the key is that they have to comply with the court order. And we regularly get great results for the environment and public health when we sue the federal government and win. How might this be different than Trump's personal business lawsuits? I loosely understand that's in his personal business lawsuits. He throws money at it and his opponent can't keep up. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.